Hey guys, welcome to Solo ReacTalk. Tonight I'm going to be reacting to Legacy of Kain, Vorador, a character study by Strictly Fantasy. If you want to check out my previous reactions to other Legacy of Kain videos, remember the playlist card will be at the top. Just click on it and you'll be able to access them. Yes, after last week's episode with Malik, a character study, I was given some comments about the original vampires, how they were turned into vampires by the Halden. How they became these bloodthirsty creatures, immortal, not able to bear children, and how some vampires were not interested in killing humans and making them into cattle and everything like that. It's mainly the second generation of vampires, the ones that they've sired, that I would say have caused most of the problems, and not the winged vampires. Yeah. So yes, I will change the way I think about them. It's hard to do, because my mind is already filled with so much information from Raziel's brothers, what they did to humans, and I'm also filled up with information about other vampire movies and TV series and how they treat humans. So I already have this prejudice against vampires, and to me, I just want them all exterminated. But I am debating in my mind where I should stand with vampires, and especially in this game, in this universe of Nosgoth. But yeah, it's difficult. It's going to be difficult, but I'm gonna try. Yeah. Okay, let's continue. 3, 2, 1, go.
Call your dogs! They can feast on your corpses!
From the moment he first appeared, Vorador certainly left an impression as he slaughtered 6 of the Circle Guardians in a devastating assault on the Sarafan stronghold.
And he was also extremely sassy and throwing shade at Malik. I remember last week's episode. He said some funny things, really.
It's easy to take one look at the vampire and consider him to be nothing more than a depraved beast in the opening cutscene of Blood Omen Legacy of Kain. Indeed, he seems to revel in his actions here, taunting his foes while laughing manically, almost as if he's embracing that darker side of himself, the monster all humans see him as. He's easily able to fend off Malik, one of the most elite human warriors, parrying his attacks with remarkable skill and then using an advanced misform to defeat him and make his escape. However, we later learn that this wasn't just an unprovoked attack. As a fledgling, Vorador suffered much at the hands of the fanatical Sarafan Brotherhood, who murdered his friends, family, lovers and children over the course of their notorious purges.
Wait, he had how many lovers? I'm sorry.
Unfortunately, very little is known about Vorador's past. Despite appearing to have a great deal of history and lore behind him, the original creators of Blood Omen didn't have a chance to flesh out his background. Following Blood Omen's release, they realised that Vorador had proven to be one of their most popular characters. Fans gravitated towards the ancient vampire's brazen, but sometimes arrogant and abrasive attitude. The developers
I just like his sassiness, especially when he's fighting against Malik. It's so funny, really, it's enjoyable.
expressed interest in exploring his character further in a prequel. Of course, this never came to pass, and ultimately Legacy of Kain was taken in another direction by Crystal Dynamics, who decided to focus on a sequel taking place more than a millennium after Vorador's death. To understand Vorador and what really drives him, we have to look closely at some of the more subtle scraps of information presented to us. When Kain visits Vorador's mansion in the bowels of the Black Forest, he encounters the old vampire seated at his dining table. Behind Vorador is a portrait of a mysterious woman with distinct markings on her face. Neither Kain nor Vorador comment on her, but she would make another appearance later in Defiance.
Maybe she was Vorador's first lover, maybe?
When Raziel travelled to the mansion in the same era, albeit in a different timeline, the woman's portrait is shown again on a wall in the dining hall. These depictions have led to speculation among fans as to the woman's identity. Clearly she was someone Vorador was fond of, and in 2012, series artist and art director Daniel Kabuko confirmed as much, shedding light on the character. Apparently, when painting a revised version of the woman's portrait for Defiance, Kabuko thought of her as a lost love. In his mind, she was a powerful sorceress who perhaps knew Vorador in a time when he was still human. An unknown tragedy had befallen her, which left Vorador heartbroken, prompting a deep distrust towards humanity, a feeling which would inevitably grow into hatred over time. You know it speaks volumes when a series can use something as simple and seemingly insignificant as a portrait to imply critical background information about a character without spelling out all the nitty-gritty details. The way Legacy of Kain leaves a lot to the interpretation of its viewers is one of the reasons why this series stands the test of time, and is what gives the story weight and gravitas.
Mankind seems to have brought you only torment and grief. You must hate them. They fear what they don't understand, and they despise what they fear. But no, I do not hate them. Vorador does. He has suffered much. He cannot forgive them.
As the first human to have received the dark gift of vampirism from the ancients, Vorador had developed a bond of mutual trust and
He was the first? Wow, okay.
respect for his sire, the Wind Janos Audron. It is likely that Janos took the role of a father figure for Vorador, providing the then fledgling vampire stability and reassurance as he adjusted to this new terrifying existence. I can imagine Janos instilling discipline in Vorador while guiding him in the ways of his ancient kin.
Instilling discipline, okay. Alright, but I don't think that worked out well because, Vorador, he's been doing some terrible things. Yeah.
Murals found in the Vampire Citadel depict the human Vorador before he was turned. He is portrayed with black hair, a muscular frame, and a beard that resembles the spikes he would inherit on his jaw and chin as a vampire. In one mural, he is seen wearing a blacksmith's vest, and from this we can deduce the reason why Vorador was chosen, namely because of his renowned skills as a blacksmith. The early vampire prophecies had shown a blade that would aid their champion in destroying their enemies and redeeming their species. The ancient vampires intended for the Reaver to be forged by a master blacksmith, and as such, Vorador was well suited for the task. At the behest of Janos, Vorador forged the Reaver blade by studying the murals which tied history and prophecy together. He had a rough idea what the sword would look like, and by following these depictions, he was able to shape prophecy into reality, though he never understood the Reaver's true purpose. Likewise, he was not given any information concerning the sorcery Janos and the others imbued the sword with. When the Seraphan Order finally managed to hunt down and murder Janos, Vorador was outraged. This was the straw that finally broke the camel's back. With this revelation, his contempt for the human race reached an all-time high. He took it upon himself to go directly after the Circle of Nine, who sponsored the brutal massacres of his people by striking at the heart of their operation, the Seraphan Stronghold.
Okay, now things are becoming a bit clearer for me now. Alright.
Vorador invaded the fortress undetected until he found 6 of his prey in the gathering chamber, and well, the rest is history. Here, Vorador can be seen wielding a sword which resembles the series' title weapon. However, this blade was not in fact the Soul Reaver, but rather another sword Vorador made for himself, which he modelled after the Reaver's design. In Defiance, Vorador's sword is given a more distinct look, so the audience can tell that it is not the Soul Reaver. The speed and grace by which he moves with this blade demonstrates that Vorador is a master swordsman. Yet, for all his power and skill, Vorador's slaughter of the Circle might not have been as easy as it seemed. There appears to be another force at work here. Interestingly, the Circle's guardians, who are supposed to be powerful sorcerers in their own right, aren't able to put up an effective resistance. In fact, their magical abilities are quite clearly shown to be failing them, as they
Yeah, I saw that with some of them, especially the one we just saw right now, the guy with the red cloak. Like he was about to fire some magical ability attacks, right? But then it just didn't work, and then he started screaming, and I was like, "What's going on with him? What's going on with his powers?" But yeah, Strictly Fantasy is asking some very interesting questions here.
vainly try to defend themselves. When asked why the Circle was defenseless against Vorador's attack, director Amy Hennig said that this hadn't yet been revealed, suggesting that there's more to this event than meets the eye. So the question remains is what other influence might have made the massacre possible? Was it the Hilden, the Elder God, Mobius, or something else? We may never get a definitive.
Maybe yes, the Helden, but I don't know what kind of influence they had in the world of Nosgoth, because they are being suppressed by the pillars. So I'm not entirely sure. The Elder God, I don't know. He's never really exerted power like that, So I'm not sure. Yeah, but maybe it might be. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Answer, but I'm curious to hear your theories in the comments. Personally, I think it has something to do with Mobius's staff. When activated, the orb in Mobius's staff is as debilitating to vampires as it is to the Soul Reaver. I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that his staff could affect his fellow Guardians' powers as well, especially as their powers derive from the pillars.
But then, he was in a different room, in a different section of the palace or the castle. Like he was far away from the Guardians, So now I'm asking, like, how far can this weapon radiate its, anti-magical aura, if I can call it that, Yeah, how far is the range? Because that would be interesting if it is Mobius' staff that actually did this.
Which were erected by the ancient vampires themselves. Something to ponder on. Nevertheless, Vorador's exploits that day would go down in history as the vampire who single-handedly slaughtered 2/3 of the Circle and humiliated their esteemed vampire hunter, Malik.
And if it did dispel the magical abilities of the Guardians, why didn't it dispel the magical abilities of Vorador? Because he was using his magic. Or can it target discriminately, like, I'm targeting only the humans, but the vampires will still be able to use their abilities, or I'm targeting the vampires, but humans will be able to use their magical abilities. Yeah.
Is this the vampire Vorador?
Yes. The scourge of the Circle, the most depraved and decadent example of his whole degenerate race. He slaughtered 6 of my fellow Guardians as they cowered defenseless in this room.
And you somehow survived this massacre?
I and 2 others. The Circle was devastated. Only we 3 were spared.
Vorador's personality differs between each of the games he's present in, depending on which timeline our 2 main characters come across him. In the original Blood Omen timeline, some 500 years after the attack on the Circle, Kain finds Vorador to be a proud and self-indulgent individual. He holds court in his own private kingdom, a labyrinth in the Black Forest, where he surrounds himself with extravagant possessions which would put even the wealthiest nobles of Kain's former life to shame. He also keeps vampire consorts here, who are really nothing more than savage pets and slaves to his will. Within his mansion there is a pantry filled with chained humans dangling from hooks, treated like cattle awaiting slaughter. And upon one of the walls are the words Manos Sella Die, which is Latin for the swift hand of God, perhaps written by Vorador himself or one of his victims with blood-stained fingers. The intent of this message seems explicit, to deify the vampire's wrath on the helpless, shackled humans. Suffice to say, this incarnation of Vorador is a monster, which is acutely picked up on by our young Kain.
In the bowels of that black forest, I found something worse than hell. A vision of
what I was becoming.
Despite his sadistic tendencies and excessive lifestyle, deep within Vorador are the undercurrents of suffering and tragedy which he's never forgiven humanity for. For all his posturing and talk of vampire superiority, he chose to shut himself away from the world and vowed never to concern himself with mortals again, except to feed. He cautioned Kain against meddling in the affairs of men, a warning Kain did not heed, which led to the near annihilation of their species, thanks to the machinations of Mobius, who capitalized on Kain's assassination of the beloved king William the Just. Mobius used the martyred king as a catalyst for reviving the ideals of the Seraphan, turning Nosgoth's populace against the vampires once again in another attempt at genocide. In this new present, Vorador is less cruel and his demeanour is much more serious and apathetic. The crusades led by Mobius's mob have taken their toll on the old vampire's spirit, driving him to dispassion and despair. When Raziel happens upon Vorador in the second timeline, he's rather taken aback by the legendary vampire's mellowed presence.
You don't know what you are, do you?
I have been many things. If you find me ignorant, enlighten me.
What's the point? This world is beyond redemption. Let the human cattle have it.
I would expect better than meek capitulation from you.
Centuries of persecution have taught me well. 500 years ago, our race was nearly exterminated by the fanatical crusades of the Seraphan. And now the same sick drama unfolds again. In merely a decade, Mobius's cutthroat citizen army has nearly accomplished what the Seraphan could not. Vampires meddling in the affairs of men. Look where it's brought us.
What am I to make of these secrets I've uncovered, then? The depictions of the winged race, the pillars, and the Reaver.
Fairy tales, boy. The delusions of an ancient culture clinging to hope long after the world had discarded them. Their bloodline trickled away, until only one of the ancients remained, sustained solely by obligation and his unfaltering faith in the old prophecies. But you see, even if you are who you appear...
But aren't they immortal? So how is it possible that it's only Janos who survived, but all the other winged vampires who also turned immortal did not make it?
to be? It no longer matters. You're simply too late. Janos Audron, the Reaver Guardian, the last of the Ancients, and my maker, was murdered by the Seraphan nearly 5 centuries ago. He alone would have the answers you seek, but his secrets died with him. I don't know how you've come even this far without his guidance, or without the Reaver, stolen these 500 years ago by the Seraphan. I'm afraid, my friend, that you and all of us are out of luck.
After confronting ruthless manipulators, Raziel finds Vorador refreshingly direct and forthcoming. Vorador was right to fear Mobius's mercenary army, for he too was eventually captured and then beheaded by a guillotine before a crowd of spectators. Surprisingly, this wouldn't be Vorador's end. He would return. And now we come to Blood Omen 2's Vorador. In this game, Vorador's disposition and personality are wholly different. Gone is the
He seems like a jester here. You know, he's just here to entertain us with these dance moves.
disheartened, wary vampire, and in his place is a proactive freedom fighter who is outwardly compassionate and has no problem expressing his sensitive side towards his allies. He shows concern for the welfare of his descendants, a new breed of vampires he's personally sired. His more questionable traits, such as his hedonistic, barbaric, and at times cruel inclinations, are nowhere to be found. They even took away one of his most defining characteristics, being his disillusionment with Nosgoth. The issue I take with Blood Omen 2's Vorador isn't necessarily the fact that he's abandoned his old ways in favour of a kinder, more caring approach. The problem is that there's no in-universe explanation for such a colossal shift in his behaviour. In my opinion, this incarnation is a downgrade from the morally grey character we've come to know. It's like the writers needed a leader for the vampire resistance and just went with a fan favourite who they moulded to fit their needs, while completely disregarding the well-established and defining attributes of his character. Kain claims that Vorador would typically...
But why are all the vampires with Kain all dressed so... like they're exposed, like naked bodies everywhere. Well, not naked, but you can see their six packs, you can see their stomachs. There's this lady who is not really wearing anything, just two stripes, just covering her nipples, and that's it. And then you have Vorador, wearing a very Victorian age kind of styled clothing. This is odd.
kill any human or vampire who defied his will, but I just can't see this incarnation doing that. When you take away everything that made Vorador awesome in the other games, unfortunately, you're not left with much other than a generic revolutionary. The circumstances surrounding Vorador's...
I don't like his face in this one. He looks so weird. I don't know. I just don't like the face. It's very strange. I'm talking about Vorador here, not Kain. Yeah, Kain's fine.
Resurrection was never disclosed in the series, as it was ultimately cut from Defiance during production. Fortunately, information has since surfaced online, which reveals some of the mystery concerning his revival. Apparently, Raziel was supposed to encounter the human Uma in Vorador's mansion when he returned from Avernus. Uma's role in the cut content was to send Raziel on a quest to retrieve Vorador's severed head from Mobius's statue. As it turns out, this wasn't merely an imitation of Vorador's head commemorating his execution, but the genuine article. After obtaining the severed head from the statue, presumably Raziel would have reattached it to the vampire's body. Expressing his gratitude, the revived Vorador would then reward Uma by turning her into a vampire. The reason why this sequence was cut was because Janos Audron's resurrection would have made it redundant. Narratively speaking, it's too repetitive to have Raziel go on two separate missions to revive one vampire and then another. Since Raziel is no longer active due to his imprisonment in the Soul Reaver, the unfinished Dark Prophecy game probably would have pursued this loose end by having the Elder Kain retrieve the head and revive Vorador. It has been theorized that the resurrected Vorador would have been distrustful of the Elder Kain after seeing how powerful the latter had become. Such a scene might also explain Vorador's wariness towards the younger Kain in Blood Omen 2, and why neither particularly liked nor trusted one another. Canonically, the last time we see Vorador is during a heated argument he had with Kain regarding Uma's apparent betrayal and death, with Vorador showing clear disgust towards Kain for killing one of his favoured followers. As they bickered back and forth, the Seraphim Lord suddenly appeared and fired a Reaver bolt at Vorador, rendering him unconscious. Vorador's fate remains unknown, and we have no evidence as to what became of him following these events. It did seem like Blood Omen 2 was setting up the stage for a direct conflict between Kain and Vorador, who were at odds due to Kain's ambition for power.
Look at Kain's eyes. Wow.
And dominion over all of Nosgoth. Assuming that he survived his injury, it's most likely that Vorador and his descendants were defeated or banished in the early stages of Kain's empire, as neither Vorador nor his followers appear in the first Soul Reaver game, which has been confirmed by developers to have not changed at all by historical paradoxes. While the argument could be made that Vorador grew protective of his new offspring after witnessing several attempts at genocide against his race, and seeing the world grow from being young and innocent to cruel and corrupt, it still would have been nice to have seen firsthand the reasons for why Vorador is the way he is in Blood Omen 2. Aside from that, he could have at least retained some of his more defining personality traits from the other games. But I'm eager to hear your thoughts. Which version of Vorador is your favourite? Do you like the fierce, brash, and at times vicious Vorador from Blood Omen 1? The weary but hardened Vorador from Soul Reaver 2 and Defiance? Or whoever the hell this is supposed to be from Blood Omen 2? Let me know. And if you like what you saw here and want to check out more, then please leave me a like and subscribe. Every little bit helps. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you again for the next video.
Okay guys, that's it with Legacy of Kain Vorador, a character study by Strictly Fantasy. Yeah, I like the Vorador from Blood Omen 1, as well as what was it, Soul Reaver 2. Yeah, I like those two, not the latter one. That guy looked like a clown. He was very, yeah, he just looked like a clown. Okay, he just looked weird. I didn't like the face. Mainly, I just didn't like the face. But yeah, it's an interesting backstory for Vorador. There are some things that we still don't know much about him, especially about the lady, the painting that he has in his mansion. And you know, I also got to find out that he was sired by Janos, so that's also quite interesting. And yeah, really, the guy went through some tough times because of the actions of humans who wanted to seek revenge on the vampires, who in turn hurt them, you know. And this is all due to the machinations of Mobius and how he switched things around as Kain, you know, was fighting against the king, and he defeated him, and then from that calamity, you know, he used the people as a new form of Seraphang order to wipe out all the vampires, and all of this chaos happened, and you know, it was just terrible, really. Mobius has been there, you know, pulling the strings, making sure that the previous Guardians would be defeated. Probably he used the staff as a magical debilitator, you know, to prevent the Guardians from defeating Vorador those many years back. What was it, like 500 years ago or so? Yeah. And also he used his cunningness to convince the king to fight against Kain, and Kain defeated the king. He used that as a political weapon and to create a new Seraphang order out of the masses of the people, which also added to his own benefit. So yeah, there's been many things that Mobius has done that has caused a lot of pain and suffering for a lot of people, you know, who were not interested in these wars, who were not interested in fighting, and they became these monsters that fought against humanity, and also humanity fighting against the vampires. Yeah, wow. Vorador is cool. I will give him that. Like, especially when he was fighting against Malik, he was so cool. I really did enjoy it. But there are some things that he did that I just don't like. You know, especially like in his mansion, how he kept humans chained up and just, you know, yeah, being chained up, and then they're going to be drank of their blood, you know, like cattle kept inside a pen. So yeah, that was kind of bad. Yeah, very bad. But yeah, guys, I guess that's it for today. Tonight, sorry. If you liked the video, remember to give me a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos, and I will see you next week Friday. Okay, bye bye.